In this lecture, we will deal with the so-called dark side of our lives. We'll start by establishing an understanding that we actually do need negative emotions. We do need anger, sadness, and frustration sometimes. But then we will move on and explore how our negative emotions, our negative feelings, all too often are not productive and not helpful. And in these instances, we will have two broad strategies to deal with it. Those are called problem-focused and the other one emotion-focused coping strategies. First, we'll look at the problem-focused coping strategies. And these are things like dealing with the problem right away, or seeking out social support, doing exercise, or engaging in something that is called expressive writing to overcome tough times. The second broad strategy is emotion-focused coping. For this, we will look at the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who survived the concentration camps, and then go on and revisit optimism and optimistic mindset. After we talked so much about how to be happy and positive emotions and why it's good to feel happy, we also have to acknowledge another thing, and that is life is not always funny or nice. And the goal of this course is certainly not to make you happy all the time. Positive psychology is a science, and so it would be unprofessional and plain wrong to claim that it's about constant happiness. What's important to understand is that everyone experiences negative emotions. Emotions like anger, frustration, and sadness. It's part of being human. In fact, Tal Ben-Shahar gives the example that there are only two kinds of people who do not experience negative emotions. The first group of those are psychopaths. By definition, they do not experience emotions like shame or embarrassing, so they, up to a certain extent, do not experience negative emotions. And the second group of people who do not experience negative emotions are dead. So if you look at this from this perspective, it's good if you experience negative emotions, because it means that you're still alive and that you're not a psychopath. And that is the reason why we as humans should always give ourselves the permission to experience these emotions. It's natural, it's normal, because everybody does experience these negative emotions once in a while. It only really starts to become a problem when our negative mood is not anymore temporary, but chronic. This is what psychologists call major depressive disorder, what we would normally call depression. But in normal doses, negative feelings can in fact be good. Here's what Joseph Forgas, an Australian psychologist, has to say about it. He says that bad moods are seen in our happiness-focused culture as representing a problem. But we need to be aware that temporary, mild negative feelings have important benefits. And then he continues to say, it's shallow and untrue to assume that positive feelings can only have positive consequences, and that negative feelings can only have negative consequences. Both positive and negative emotions have evolutionary benefits. And our negative emotions have a function. They have a part in our normal human life and are also a potential for growth. Sometimes it's important to feel sad or angry. One example would be if something bad happens to us. Let's say we or someone we love gets very ill. In these instances, it's absolutely logical that we feel sad. Or if we have a breakup with a partner, it's absolutely logical to feel sad. It makes sense. Similarly, anger can be an adequate and valuable response if somebody treats us in an unfair manner. Anger is a legitimate reaction to something that is perceived as unjust or unfair. The bottom line of all of this is that it's important that we give ourselves the permission to experience also negative emotions, that we accept those as part of normal human life. Often, we encounter difficulties and situations in our lives that we need to overcome. We have problems to solve. Maybe we got laid off and need to look for a new job, or went through a breakup recently. If we face one of these tough situations, our first choice is to deal with the problem. Throughout this video, we'll discuss so-called problem-focused coping strategies. In simple words, that means strategies to solve these problems and deal with them constructively. The first one that we're going to look at is dealing with it. How can we set goals to deal with problems? The second one is turning to others, to friends and family. Thirdly, we talk about how exercise can be such an important tool. And fourthly, and lastly, we talk about expressive writing. Let's look at those in turn. The first one is the most obvious one, to deal with the problem and to find a solution. Finding a solution is a process that is very individual, very specific to your needs and your specific problem. That's why in the resources you will find an action plan for effective problem solving. This one leads you through the most important step when it comes to problem solving. It's based on a therapeutic approach called problem-solving therapy and was proven to be a very helpful framework to deal with all kinds of problems. Whether it's a job search or overcoming a breakup, to making a difficult life decision or handling conflict with a coworker. These few steps you can use as a framework to try to solve all kinds of problems that you encounter throughout your life. The second one may also be quite obvious now, after we talked about the incredible importance of relationships in our lives. But still, I had to mention it here, because so many of us, and that includes me, have the tendency to turn inward when we face stress and pressure and tough times. The rituals that we build up with friends, for example meeting every Friday after work, are the first ones we let go when our pressure mounts. But this is a flawed strategy. In fact, a bunch of studies show the importance of social support for our resilience and resistance in face of problems. One study, for example, looked at people who had a heart attack, and they found that those people who received emotional support from others during the next 6 months after their heart attack were 3 times more likely to survive. This means that friends and family can literally save our lives just by being there. Similarly, another study showed that participating in a breast cancer support group actually doubled the woman's life expectancy after the surgeries. What this shows us is that our friends and family have the power to save our lives simply by being there and supporting us, by being somebody to turn to. What I'm advocating is here to make use of these incredible support, to turn towards your friends and to build relationships that you can turn to in tough times as well. We often hear about the physical benefits of exercise. Those are quite commonly known, such as reducing the risks of heart attack, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, certain cancers, and in general, increasing our immune system functioning. But there are also psychological benefits that are not as well known. Among them is that we get less anxious if we engage in physical activity regularly. And we are also less prone to stress, and our self-esteem is increased. Last but not least, it also makes us feel good. And this is especially true for people with depression or people facing tough times. An amazing study done brought in a bunch of depressed people with depressive symptoms. And they split them up into 3 different groups. One of the groups, they gave antidepressants. The other group, they gave antidepressants and ordered them to exercise 30 minutes for 3 times a week. And the third group, they only instructed them to exercise 30 minutes for 3 times a week. And what they found was that after 3 months, all of those groups showed similar decreases in depressive symptoms. That means that the researchers showed that exercise alone was as effective as the state-of-the-art antidepressants on the market. But that's not even all. There's more, because after these 3 months, they stopped. They stopped giving them antidepressants, they stopped the study, and waited for another 3 months. So after another 3 months of not doing anything with the patients, with the depressed people, they again looked at how are they doing now? Are they doing worse than before? How many people relapsed back into depression? And what was most amazing, that in the antidepressants groups, the relapse rates were about 40%. And in the exercise-only group, not even 10% of the people relapsed back into depression. That, in essence, means that physical activity is as powerful at reducing depression as antidepressants, the best antidepressants on the market, and its long-term effects are way better. That is amazing, and that's why physical activity is such a powerful tool for people who are feeling sad a lot, who are depressed, who have a shallow mood. There is even much more to know about this topic and physical exercise in general. And it's a very undermastered area in psychology in general. But this would go beyond the scope of this course. Just rest assured that physical activity can be very powerful, not only for our physical, but also for our psychological well-being. The fourth strategy is called coping through writing, or expressive writing. With this exercise, you have to be a little careful, because it asks you to write about a very upsetting or traumatic experience. Nevertheless, it has been found to be an exercise that has greatly benefited many people. The instructions are to write for 15 minutes for 4 days. It has been researched quite extensively, and you will have clear instructions in the additional resources. The results of this exercise are quite remarkable. In the days after the study, that means after the 4 days of writing about these traumatic experiences, those people who wrote about it are less anxious, become more social, their well-being or happiness increases, and what's most remarkable, their physical health improves. Simply by writing about emotionally upsetting experiences, our immune system improves. So try it out and see how it's working for you.